Hello everyone, my name is Felix Golenko and welcome to another episode of Dashboards Worth Using. This episode is about a dashboard that is based on the principle of 5 dials, the principle I was introduced to at Strategic Coach. This dashboard was designed for one of my businesses with the purpose to be used in our weekly meetings. But first, credit to whom credit is due. 5 dials is not something that I have invented. I first heard about it at Strategic Coach. And here is what has inspired me to design a dashboard on the topic of 5 dials. So I'm a member of Strategic Coach, and at Strategic Coach we meet 4 times per year for one-day workshops, and we cover topics that help us entrepreneurs manage and grow our businesses. One of the topics we were discussing in my workshop group a while ago was the topic of 5 dials, which, by the way, for me, being a metric and dashboard guy, was obviously super interesting. So our coach introduced this concept with a little story about Dan Sullivan, the founder of Strategic Coach, shown here on the picture. So on one of his travels, he was sitting next to a gentleman who has turned out to be a pilot flying big jumbo jets. Now, if you know Dan, he is interested in many things, so he told the pilot that he was fascinated by the number of dials pilots have got on their airplane dashboards. But then he asked the pilot a very interesting question, and Dan is particularly known for being able to ask exactly the right questions. So the question was, well, how many dials do you actually consult during the normal flight if everything goes according to the plan? And the pilot answered, about 5. So as you can imagine, Dan goes, how about the other ones? What are they for? Well, the pilot said, if one of the main dials isn't right, there are backup dials that tell me what's wrong so that I can take corrective actions. So this is how Dan Sullivan, and I hope I got this story right, got the idea about using 5 dials for monitoring businesses. Now, my part of the story comes. I'm just using this very idea, and I will show you in this episode how these dials, or I call them metrics, could look like in one particular case, namely how I use them for weekly meetings with my staff. In my opinion, there are a few challenges when it comes to choosing the right dials, but also when it comes to working with these dials in a right way. The first one, for what purpose would we use these dials in the first place? Or put differently, what would we want to do after we have seen them? The next challenge, what would then these dials be? Which dials should we use for our very special situation? The dials that are important for a pilot most probably are speed, altitude, fuel consumption, and a couple of more. But what would be the relevant dials for our very business? The next challenge, if I had these dials, how would I want them to be shown to me? How would I want them to be displayed to me? Or how would my dashboard with these dials look like? The next challenge, do I have the data for my dials? No data, no dials. The next one, how would then I work with these dials if I had them? Meaning, how often and in what situations would I use them? And the last one, if I don't like what one of these dials shows, meaning I don't like the value of it, would this alone help me take corrective actions? And if not, what backup dials would I need then to help me make decisions and take actions? Well, not all of these challenges I will address in this episode, but let's see how to address some of them. So, without much further ado, let's dive in and take a look at how a dashboard I believe is really worth using when it comes to 5 dials would look like. And this is how. One thing up front, the numbers shown here do not reflect reality. They were chosen solely for the demonstration purposes. But the choice of the metrics and their display, their visualization, this does reflect reality. Now, you may want to pause this video right now and take a look at what this dashboard shows. It should not take you too long to understand what is really going on here, especially if you have seen some of the dashboards I have already designed. but even if not, it should be pretty straightforward. But still, let me walk you through this dashboard and above all explain how it meets the challenges I was just talking about. Let's start with the title, which sets the context. As the title shows, these are my weekly dials, meaning I use this dashboard on a weekly basis. I use this dashboard to show the actual and target values of my current metrics or the values of my current dials. In just a second, I'll introduce these dials, but one thing already up front. I do not use all the time the same dials. They change for me. Not every week, but certainly some of them get replaced every few months, depending really which part of my business I decide to particularly focus on. I'm showing these dials in an overview dashlet as highlighted here, and the rest of the charts show what I call a timeline, or how the value of a dial has evolved over time. And the time period I'm looking at are at least last 6 weeks. Why 6? I just prefer 6. Could be 4, could be 8. And now let's take a look at the content itself. First and foremost, the dials or the metrics. The first one is number of new social media connects that we have generated last week. A bit of background. Our current challenge, or what we currently focus on, is lead generation. Our sales process is okay. We are quite efficient. We've got good services. And we are primarily using LinkedIn for connecting with our target group. So this dial or this metric tells me how this or first part of our lead generation process really performs. The second part is then converting these leads into one-star prospects. Well, with these one-star prospects, we follow Dean Jackson's philosophy. And for us, one-star prospects are those who are friendly and willing to communicate with us. So, with number of new one-star prospects, we track the number of those that were generated last week. The next one is the number of participants for BI Day. Now, BI Day for us is kind of a lunch and learn type of event that we do on our premises. We bring in prospects and customers. We share with them our methodology, our BI process blueprint. We demonstrate to them a couple of tools, how this methodology then could be applied in their business intelligence projects. But above all, we've got, since we do this on our premises, we've got our consultants and our developers here. And after lunch, the participants can meet with them and discuss with them their particular challenges. The next one is the number of billable hours. We plan the billable hours on a monthly basis, break these down on weekly basis, and then we track whether we have achieved our plan for a last week or not. But we also track how many resources with the utilization rate over 80% we have got. We really want to make sure that our utilization is high enough. Now, for these dials or for these metrics, we track actuals in the first column here versus target in parentheses. And we track percentage of target. This actually is for me the most important part of this dashboard because it tells me at a glance on which dials and which part of my businesses I need to pay special attention to. In this case, well, as I said, the data is not real. It's just for the demonstration purposes. Well, in this case, I should pay special attention to the dial or to the metric number of new one-star prospects. So, this dashlet here tells me exactly how the particular parts of my business represented by these chosen dials have performed last week. Which are on target and which are not on target. But this is just one part I'm really interested in. Equally important for me is the trend. Where are we improving over time and where are the things getting worse? Because the last week may have been good or the last week may have been bad, okay? But the real question here is, how is this evolving over time? This is how. Here I see the trend of the actual values over time, but this also shows how we were performing to target over last 6 weeks. One metric in particular I show in a slightly different way, and it's number of participants for our BI days. I show here the cumulative number. Now, in week 13, I know we are 2 weeks from the next BI Day event. We've got 8 people right now signed up for the event. On target would be 10, but there are still 2 weeks to go, so nothing really to worry about. So, this is my 5 dials dashboard, and this dashboard for me is very well worth using. I know on a weekly basis where we stand. It very much simplifies and also shortens meetings with my staff. Usually they see the dashboard or the numbers before I do. So they, at least most of the time, not always, come prepared to our weekly meetings. But above all, if the things start going south, it takes me at most a week to start reacting and acting. Without these dials, without this dashboard, I'd be flying blind. And hope would be the strategy. Remember at the beginning I was talking about these challenges? Now let's see how this dashboard helps us with them. What should the dials help me do? Well, I have chosen them to help me monitor on a weekly basis the parts of my business for which I currently want to pay most attention to, meaning for which I currently believe that I've got most leverage in and for my business. Which dials am I using for this? Here they are. So as you can see, I'm primarily measuring our marketing activities, just a bit of sales and the operations. No financials on a weekly basis, because I claim if we do our homeworks in marketing, sales and operations every week well, then there will be absolutely no problems and no bad surprises with our financial stuff at the end of the month. It's as simple as that. How to show, how to display these dials, or how would a dashboard with these dials look like? Show them so that they provide actionable insights, actual values versus targets, as an overview for the last week, but also as a trend over last 6 weeks. Is the data available? This one is not really addressed here. But of course, you need to have the data available for your dials. Now, what happens if you don't have the data? Good question. Now, if a dial would be important for you to improve and grow a part of your business, what would it be worth to you to have it? Let's say you would estimate that monitoring one particular dial on a regular basis would lead to decisions and actions that could help increase performance of the underlying part of the business by, say, 10% in 3 months. Would it be worth to you investing into an application to gather the necessary data? If yes, well, do it, get this application. If no, then there's just no reason to have this dial in the first place. How to work with these dials? Well, for me in this case, just before and during the weekly meetings with my staff. Well, this sets the right focus and very, very much simplifies the communication. Are backup dials necessary? But of course, for some of them, for instance, for the number of new one-star prospects. Which campaigns are we currently running to get them? How effective are these campaigns? In which of them should we invest more and in which less? This is where additional information or additional dials are needed. How to identify these and how to design a dashboard or report on them? Well, stay tuned for next Dashboards Worth Using episodes. There will be episodes coming covering exactly these topics. There is a lot of food for thought here, I believe. First of all, do you believe in dials? Do you believe in measuring? Or that if you had your right dials and you would work with them on a regular basis, do you believe this would really help you improve the parts of your business that you would be monitoring? Well, just in case you don't, I have recently come across a great interview with Jeff Walker and Tony Robbins. Both of these guys I really very much admire. And Tony Robbins mentioned in this interview that he is measuring his businesses every week. And if I remember correctly, he's got 21 businesses with over 1,200 employees. And he is measuring them every week. How often are you measuring your business? By the way, below this video I will publish the link to this interview. It may be interesting for you. If you believe in measuring, let me help you be more specific. Which parts of your business could be improved, perhaps even significantly, if you had a dial on them that will help you make decisions and take actions? And which would then be these dials? How often would you like to look at your dials? Daily, weekly, monthly? But this may not be the right question for you. The right question for you may be, which dials should I look at? Daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly? Am I here suggesting that you should have more dashboards? But of course. You haven't seen any financial dials on my weekly dashboard, but I certainly do track financials on my monthly dashboard. But would it make sense for you to have financial dials on your weekly or maybe even daily dashboard? I could continue here forever, but this alone will probably keep you busy for a few minutes, maybe even for a few hours. So, there you have it. One dashboard that is probably even more than just worth using. It's a must. But of course, with your dials and your way of showing them. But you can very well take my dashboard as a template and customize it to your specific needs. So please leave me your comments. Let me know what you think about what you've just seen and heard. And you can also be a guest on Dashboards Worth Using. If you have got a few questions about your business and you would need a dashboard to answer these questions in an actionable way, I may be able to help you design this dashboard and then share it in one of the upcoming episodes. So just send me an email to fgolenko@dashboardsworthusing.com, put guest in the subject line, and tell me a bit about your business and what kind of dashboard you would need. If it's a good fit for my show, I will get in touch with you. I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you found it useful. If you haven't done this yet, go ahead and subscribe now to Dashboard Worth Using. And if you would like me to help you design and implement your dashboards and reports, or to stay in the context of 5 dials, if you would like me to help you choose your dials and design how they could be shown on your dashboard, just send me an email to fgolenko@dashboardsworthusing.com and let's start the dialogue. So, that's it for this episode. Happy dashboarding, and I'll see you in the next episode.